This is William Earl Thinkson. Today I'm going to talk about the 2014 election. The Democrats could lose the House and the Senate next year. If this happens, the president will lose his power. His power base has been eroding away for about 3 years now due to obstruction inside of the House. The House has blocked all laws or all reforms to fix this government. If you think that the austerity is bad now, if the Congress goes to the Republican Party and the Senate goes to the Republican Party, then in 2016 Ted Cruz becomes the president, you're going to get more austerity and more deeper cuts. Where are these cuts going to be? Who's going to get all the savings? Well, the wealthy among us is going to get the savings. It's not going to trickle down to you, the working man who was in the field, or the bricklayer. It is going to go to captains of industry. It's going to go to the Mitt Romneys and the Warren Buffetts. May I suggest that if the Republicans take power again, they're going to make the banks even more bigger. I am predicting that Ted Cruz is going to win the election. Maybe. If the Republican Party, the Tea Party, wins both, you're going to see deep cuts through Medicaid, Medicare. You're going to see cuts through throughout the state. It is not a path that we want to continue. The blocks of passing laws into effect is going to continue. In his last years of being the president, there might be more obstruction by the Tea Party if these major candidates across the nation who are running win their seats by November. Let me suggest that the food stamps program gets cut anymore. It gets cut to the bone, to the point where the people are starving. And they're going to turn that into profits. They're going to save the money and give it to Wall Street. But may I ask you this question, what is a tax cut? Does anyone know? Tax cut is actually government spending. Government spending that we do not have. We do not have a 56% cut on the wealthy. We can't afford it. This is how you run up deficits. If these people get elected, they're going to push for their own agenda. And the agenda that they're going to push is not going to be in our interest as a people. The American people need to focus on two things. We need to get people elected that are going to focus on job creation, bank regulation, and Wall Street's control. May I suggest that we get Bernie Sanders into the presidency instead of Ted Cruz? I think that Bernie Sanders have a good chance of winning. He is an independent from Vermont. He is the type of person that we need. Let's take a time travel device. Um, but there are 2 years in the last century where the average 1% took home the most. That was in 1927 and 2007. May I ask what happened after 27 and '07? There has been a major crash after the largest economic boom in our history. As the Roaring Twenties came to an end in 1929, there was an economic crash. These crashes were due to tax cuts on the very wealthy. It is these tax cuts that allow the rich to gamble more excessively. During this time period, during the crash, those who see the crash coming took their money out. They invested it in solid property, like movie theaters or car rental or dealerships. I'm suggesting that if the Republican Party comes into power, takes both the Senate, the Republican Tea Party, takes both the Senate and the House, it's not just going to wreak havoc on the president. The president's power base would be gone or eroded away. We must hold the Senate and we must gain seats in the Congress where is a neutral majority, equal amount of seats, half Democrats and half Republican. I also suggest that we fill the Senate with independents. This will allow negotiations between the Republican Tea Party and the Congress. The only way for President Obama to regain his power structure if China attacks Japan over the Senkaku Islands, which is located near China but between Japan. If China attacks Japan, it will governize the Republican Party and governize the Democratic Party, and it will strengthen his base. But this is most likely not going to happen. They're going to most likely stand at attention with each other and threaten each other to attack each other, most likely. Most likely it's going to come down to a pissing contest between the United States and China. Excuse my language. Sorry about that. But if we want a good chance of a recovery that goes down to the people, we need solid progressive types. We need liberals. And, hell, I'm a candidate. I don't mind. I have nothing forward to do. I have nothing to do, except talking to my audience. To be honest with you, I personally believe that there's going to be a major crash because we haven't solved the problem of this economic chaos that was created in the first place. Instead, the administration put a Band-Aid for us to worry about later in the future. It's not. The problem is inequality in the United States. There is more inequality now than has ever were. There is more jobs being created, but they're not full-time jobs. They are part-time jobs. With more older people coming back to the workforce who has lost their pensions due to the closing of their companies. Companies are closing their doors left and right. To realize where a company is, if a company is probable, you look at two things: their prices Whether a company that charges low prices is profitable. A company that charges high prices is clinging to life. They're clinging to life because they have nothing better to do with their time. And suggests that the president has a hard time with the Congress. He's even going to have even a more hard time with the Senate if the Senate goes red next election year, which is a midterm year, not a presidential year. But this could set up the presidential election of 2016, which have some starters like Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders. I personally like the idea that we need solid investments. We cannot no longer depend on the Wall Street because it's going to go crashing down to the ground. Personally, I think this is a change of directive. We need to know where we're heading, where we're going. We need to know who are we going to vote for, what have you. And, those new electrical voting machines in these voting places, you can easily rig them. And, I personally believe that we need to put check and balances on major corporations. They're becoming too powerful, too influential in our government. What we need to do was restrain them, pass a Constitution amendment that tells them that they are not people and money is property and it's not speech. The Citizens United law was a big, big mistake from my perspective. And it's going to hurt the middle class that ever before. My prediction is that here is now, we're living in 2013, 2014, the Republican Party, the Tea Party, will take the Senate and the House. Or they're going to break even, one of the two. Then we get into the election of 2016. Ted Cruz could take the presidency. It depends on if it's strong propaganda or weak propaganda. If the Republican Party turnout is strong during these 2 years, they will gain control over the Senate. But then if the stock market crashes, if the stock market crashes while these conservatives are in power, it's going to be shades of the 30s all over again. What's going to happen is that Ted Cruz is going to try a conservative approach to improve the economy. The Tea Party, the extreme Tea Party approach of cutting taxes and cutting spending. So we're going to see more austerity measures in place. So by the timeline, now we're in the 2020s and things are even getting more worse. And people are looking around. This is when the Democratic Party is going to be strong and influential. After the crash of 2016, 2019, what have you, it could be even 2029. So you have these peaks. Goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and then whoop, it goes off the table. I personally believe that if you have stocks, sell them off, do away with them, because the stock market can crash as soon as now. It can crash now because it's 1:07 Friday. It's AM, and it's going to be an opening day, and it could crash. It will crash because two things: the economy is not stable; it's actually unstable. The only reasons why Wall Street profits are higher is three things actually: squeezing workers, squeezing profits out of workers that has low wages. Number 3, laying people off. When you lay people off, there's extra income, therefore boosting the profitability of your company. And cheap Chinese labor. Now, the problem in the United States is that demand has been stagnated. It's been stagnated for since the Reagan administration. Now, when demand flatlines and productivity, there is when demand flatlines, so does productivity. But productivity and demand has remained artificially high. Why has it been artificially high? Simple. It's been paid for by credit. In the 1990s, during the Reagan transformation, all these factories left the United States, leaving no one with no income. So to maintain their standard of living, they turned to credit. Because Reagan and Clinton had, easy accessible credit. Then you get into the thousands, where George W. Bush, he cut taxes for the billionaires. He cut it probably around 23% in 01 and in 03. That's when we have the more jobs leaving the country underneath the Bush administration, underneath President Obama, due to these tax cuts. The tax cuts. But he also didn't cut spending to offset these tax cuts. So he created this huge budget deficit. And throughout the Bush administration, we've been running deficits ever since. Now then you get to 07. Transition of power between a Democratic administration and between a Republican administration and a Democratic administration. Sorry about that. My bad. And you still have continued stagnant wages. What happens in 08? The stock market crashes. Credit becomes hard to get. It's hard to get now. Even now, I can't get a credit card. My credit is bad because of student loans. And wages are beginning to erode away again. When demand falls, so does productivity. Because money equals demand. Some people will disagree with me, but because some say supply equals demand. No. It is money. When people at the top of the income scale has money, they will spend it, therefore spurring growth. So what should we do to solve this inequality? We can raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, tether it to the price of inflation, which will lift us, the working people, out of poverty. And there'll be less burden on the social safety net, like food stamps, house assistance. If we have a living wage in the United States, it will solve a lot of our problems. And it will keep the United States pretty much it will increase productivity. But stagnation in the economy like ours is typical. And, may I suggest this, the economy is unstable to one other thing. It takes a strong middle class to consume the goods and services that we all need. Without this strong middle class, the economy, let me suggest, what's the point of having cheap goods made in China if you don't have no one to buy it from? If there is no demand to buy your product, therefore, there is no supply. I would like to say thank you, subscribe to my channel, and like my video. This is the write-in candidate signing out.